What's up, Lola May? Okay. I'm sure people probably out doing their thing on a Saturday afternoon. Peace to everybody. I just titled this Live from the Library. Some of the videos people ask about what books they should get. Can you hear me? If you can hear me good, push one, please. Somebody out there in Cyberland. Right on. All right, thank you, Lola May. Okay, I'm trying to think where I want to go with this. Get this sun out of the picture. Um, Instead of just rattling off some books, I'd rather take this moment, this brief moment, to just talk about a mindset. Okay? Trying to think here. This is the first thing I want to say about everything. There is a through line, I feel, in everything. Everything. There's a through line. So I want to read something, a scripture, real quick. This is something that if you are serious about studying, something you need to get, the Companion Bible. I first heard this mentioned by Jordan Maxwell, and I put it on my Amazon wish list like 6 years ago. I found it one time in a store for $50 and I didn't get it. Hadn't seen it again until, this is funny how things work. I'm talking to the homeboy Dap, and he's talking about how he's got this Companion Bible. And I'm like, man, I had that book on my for years. And he was going in, he's got the big one. They've got one with big print, like the 8.5 by 11 size, which is the one I originally wanted and let it get away. But anyway, he's telling him, like, you got to get the book. He said, if for nothing else, it's worth the money just for the numerology information in the back. So this is not just a regular Bible. It's a study Bible. It's what is called a companion Bible. So it's not just to reprint the Bible. It is notes that expound on concepts inside of each scripture. Okay, it's voluminous. But either way, I'm gonna read something out of here just to use this for as a strictly just a Bible though. just to read something. I want to say that read something that applies to our whole existence. Everything. Everything comes down to this. It's in Genesis chapter 11, I want to say. Genesis chapter 11, verse 6. Let's see, it says Genesis chapter 11, verse 5. And the Lord came down to see the city and the... Oh, no. Let me back up. Let me just go to start at verse 1. Chapter 11, verse 1. Genesis. Let me find it because this shit is jumbled up in this thing because it got the notes. The nation scattered. Damn, I lost my... I gotta get another Bible. This shit is, let me see, 31, 32. Here it is. And the whole, if you get the Bible, you'll see why it's shit is broken up. Okay, and the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, Go to, let us make brick, and turn them throughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they mortar. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven. And let us take us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they began to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they had imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth. And from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of the whole earth. Now, what I'm reading you is what I feel like is the crux, or a big part of the crux of our existence. It is that, what's happening, Dark Truth? It is that we are not able, let me backtrack. Collectively, we do not understand the roots of language, period. And we don't understand the significance of understanding roots of language. Root as in mother, as in etymology. And what I want to try to do here, if I can remember, everything's jumbled up. If I can remember, is I want to show the significance, and I want to show that somebody important knew the significance, and thus possibly the biggest deception is to hide the connectedness of language, of every language. Pick a language, of every language. Because what the scripture is saying, that there was one tongue. See, a tower and tongue and phallus, they're all the same symbol. Tongue allows for expression. A phallus allows for expression. A tower allows for, it's all about ways of something going out. Going out. So if you think about your story, first think of a phallus, and then the scattering is like an ejaculation. All these different sperm cells come out of this one phallus. So that means they all have a root. See, these stories they're layered. Mythos is layered in knowledge. So these languages or tongues came out of one tongue, one phallus, and it was scattered so that it could populate the earth. And this is where the conspiracy begins. Very few people who know this will ever share this, because this is the crux, or what I again say is a big piece of the crux of this whole thing. This is the crux of psychology, everything, of a mind that was some singular type of cohesion that broke up. You see the same story repeated with language. It broke up. Same story repeated with humanity. Broke up. So everything's got to trace back to a root, to a mama, to a mother. This is the root of astrology. Astrology is nothing but the pieces of the whole. That's why each aspect in a chart is not singular. They are flowing into each other, like pools, like streams. That's what you start to see like, and I'm not no master astrologer, but it's just, it don't take long to see. You study this stuff a little long, you see nothing's cut and dry. Everything's flowing into one steady stream or one pool. Mama, water. So we see these different drops of water or seeds or semen broke up and they populated the earth. Here's the conspiracy. The conspiracy is the whole institution of linguistics to make it so complicated and so laden with technical jargon and subgroups, categories, subcategories, anthropologic, influences, archaeological. It's endless. It's endless. So therefore, it never can be just stated that really they're expressions of one thing. So let me hold on. Let me move this. See if y'all can see that sign up there. That's on my wall. Let me get my hands here. This is Idris Shah. Yeah, good. I can enlarge my screen. Wisdom is when you understand what previously you only knew. Idris Shah. Give me 1 second. All right, put your thinking caps on. We're going to move fast. Put your thinking caps on. Okay, we're going to go fast. All right, first order of business. We're going to lay out the case. This book, everything's connected. This book the title is Quiet. Susan Cain. I want to read you something. Now, lock in. You got to pay attention. Okay. I pick up right here. Hold on. Let me find. Okay, check this out. Carnegie's metamorphosis from farm boy to salesman, and this is not talking about the Carnegie family, supposedly. This is about another Carnegie. It's Andrew Carnegie. No. Not Andrew Carnegie. It's about Carnegie. It's about a man named Dale Carnegie. Let me just back up. Dale's last name is Carnegie. Carnegie, actually, he changes the spelling later, likely to evoke Andrew, the great industrialist. After a few grueling years selling beef for Armour and Company, he sets up shop as a public speaking teacher. Carnegie holds his first class at a YMC night school on 125th Street in New York City. Ain't that something? On 125th Street. Interesting. He asked for the usual $2 per session salary for night school teachers. The wise director, doubting that a public speaking class will generate much interest, refuses to pay that kind of money. But the class is an overnight sensation, and Carnegie goes on to found the Dale Carnegie Institute, dedicated to helping businessmen root out the very insecurities that had held him back as a young man. In 1913, he publishes his first book, Public Speaking and Influencing Men in Business. In the news, when pianos and bathrooms were luxuries, quote, Carnegie writes, men regarded ability in speaking as a peculiar gift, needed only by the lawyer, clergyman or statesman. Today, we have come to realize that it is the indispensable weapon of those who would forge ahead in the keen competition of businesses. Now, I want you to understand, frame this. This is 1913. He publishes his first book. This is the early, just the second decade of the 20th century. Put a thumbnail right there. All right. Carnegie's metamorphosis from farm boy to salesman to public speaking icon is also the story of the rise of the extrovert ideal. Carnegie's journey reflected a cultural evolution that reached a tipping point around the turn of the 20th century, changing forever what we are and whom we admire. Understand what I just said. Carnegie's journey reflected a cultural evolution that reached a tipping point around the turn of the 20th century, changing forever who we are and whom we admire. How we act at job interviews and what we look for in an employee. How we court our mates and raise our children. America has shifted from the influential cultural historian Warren Sussman, from what the influential cultural historian Warren Sussman called a culture of character to a culture of personality. Now I want you to just stop. Let's just revisit that. What they're saying is that even as much of a fallacy as it was to try to say that America had a culture of character in the 19th century, you got to ask what kind of character. But let's just take it for granted and say that at the turn of the 20th century, a culture of personality was introduced. That explains, even right now, it explains how we got where we are right now. Culture of personality, which now we're in the culture of influence, which is a child of the culture of personality. Okay, check this out. It says, in the culture of character, the ideal self was serious, disciplined, and honorable. What counted was not so much the impression one made in public as how one behaved in private. The word personality didn't exist in English until the 18th century. And the idea of having a good personality was not widespread until the 20th. Ain't that some, look, hold on. The word personality didn't exist in English until the 18th century, and the idea of having a good personality was not widespread until the 20th. This is how we got here. All right, we building the case. Okay. That's all I needed. That's all I needed from that. Because where I want to go with that is that mindset also marries with how language would change from the 19th century to the 20th century. less focus on denotative meaning in language, which means closer to the mama, closer to the DNA, so to speak, to a more connotative. Connotative means how it's perceived. Like if I tell you you're awful, in our present day, that means I'm telling you you're terrible or something's bad about you. Well, awful means full of awe. See, along everything goes together. There's nothing separate. What's happening, Milton? Nothing separate. What they're talking about going from a culture of character to personality is the same thing that happened with the English language. You've heard a lot of people reference this dictionary. The American Dictionary of English Language, 1828. And you know what's in here. You know what's in here. You know when you go and look up American, what's in here. Okay? It's an example. Why is it that you can't find some of the things that are in here in the later published Noah Webster dictionaries? Go back. Now, I mentioned in the Bible that when we talk about the tower, the tongue, the snake, all these things, they all tie back to, okay, so we're going to document. We're going to document today. This is Encyclopedia of Esoteric Man, okay? All right, we're going to go to, I got that marked at. I know. If I didn't mark the page, which if I didn't mark it, that means I need to have a hand cut off or something. Let me see here. Hold on, bear with me here. I just wanted to read it to document what it's talking about. When I reference that these concepts, it's all one concept. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Okay, here we go. Among the many symbols of the phallus are the line, the stick, the rod, the scepter, spear, sword, dagger, candle, plow, the field or furrow being female, the tongue of a bell, the bell itself is feminine, the pulpit, the altar being female, fingers, toes, fish, serpent, tortoise because of its long retractable neck, and all tall, conical, upright things like pillars, posts, maypoles, tree trunks, crosses, obelisks, monoliths, pyramids, towers, spires, campanelles, minarets, upright stones, rocks, hills. The phallus has a philosophical and occult as well as a mystical significance. Encyclopedia of Esoteric Man. Now we got the link now between the phallus, the tower, and the tongue. We okay? Now, so then the plot thickens. I always tell people to get you one of these, a Strong's Concordance. Now let me keep it 1,000% with you. I've had this thing for years. First of all, when you're notorious for not reading directions, which I can sometimes be, you can make an ass out of yourself. First of all, the first couple of years I had this, I was using it and was using it wrong. Because I never took the time to go to the beginning and read the directions for how to use the Strong's Concordance. Okay, so I read enough to learn how to use it, but I didn't read to read everything. So this year, I had this thing for probably at least 6-7 years. Not until 2019 did I really just open it up and really read in the beginning. And look what I found. Let me tell you what I found. They got a section in here. This is the Zondervan edition of Strong. See, they wanna, it's marketing. That's not even the original title. Strongest. They're trying to do a pun. The man's name was Strong. His last name, I think his first name was Robert. I think he's Robert Strong. He lived again in the 19th century. So So check this out. Strong lived, he lived, because they got it up here in the front, 1822 to 1894. James Strong, Dr. James Strong, okay? So this was first put out in the 1800s, 19th century. Are y'all following me? 19th century. Now, in this 2001 version of Zondervan's Strong's Concordance, let me read what they say in a section called Related Words. One popular element of Strong's original dictionaries has been intentionally omitted in the Strongest Strongs. Following the majority of 19th century scholarship, did we hear that? Strong attempted to explain the meaning of each word by referring to its alleged root meaning, same as etymology. Though popularized in many other dated reference books like Vine's Expository Dictionary of New Testament Words, this practice has been largely abandoned by modern scholars. Modern, who often label it the root fallacy. Ain't that something? In this original entry on Hebrew word 6533, Strong explains. It's talking about a word is kos, and it's from an unused root mean to hold together a cup as a container, often figuratively a lot, as in a potion. Also, some unclean bird, probably an owl, perhaps from the cup-like cavity of its eye. In this attempt to relate the unused root meaning to both cup and owl, he stretches for an explanation that would apply to almost any animal with an eyeball, since all eyeballs are set in cup-like cavities. Now stop it right there. That's what I want you to know. That right there is intentional. That's deception. And see what's being done here is negating the importance and the influence of symbology when you're studying language. Language is not just some left brain application where you're breaking up this and, well, they pronounce this way and that this way, and then it shifted. They're always, in all thinking, there should never just be a just a left brain logical approach. You always have to keep your right brain engaged with. That's what true critical thinking is. It is a marriage between using both sides of your brain. So you always got to consider symbology when you study language. You mean to tell me that a cup that receives cannot relate to a bird? And then if we try to find any correlation, then we're stretching. No, we're not stretching when we know that there's something called symbolism. And we know that all languages emerge from symbols. Those two are forever intertwined. The scribing, the speaking, the symbol. Okay? So then he says, in his attempt to relate the unused root to both cup and owl, he stretches. Oh, I read that already. Let me skip down. He also talks about a word, cleave, which means stick together in one instance and cut apart in another. And he says Strong is wrong for trying to say that although they're spelled the same in Hebrew, Strong is wrong in trying to say that they're related. This is what the editors of this version are saying. And do you know, see, they expect people to be stupid. Anybody who studied just a little bit, common sense, why is it that Hawa and Haya, Eve comes back to both words? Eve, when you trace it back through Hebrew, can come back to Hawa and Haya. One is supposed to be life and one is supposed to be destruction. Well, damn. Well, damn. See, this is where this comes into play. This is where this book comes into play. See, all this stuff is related. The Kabbalion. See, this is how you did all that right there. The Kabbalion. Because everything there's a masculinity and there's a femininity. There are so-called polarities. But the whole key is to overcome the polarity. The language shows the way to overcome the polarities, because it will show you, especially when you study Semitic tongues, they break their languages up into masculine and feminine. To say eat for to a man in Arabic is kol, kol. To a woman, koli. A kuli, kuli, kuli. Kol for a man, kuli, kuli. If it's a group, kulu, kulu. But see, there's a difference between in Spanish. You have one ending for the masculine, one for the feminine. These were jewels or clues hidden to remind you to find the midpoint. We take the same word and just change the vowel, but the consonants are the same because it's all the same. So here's another author from the 19th century. So let's put a comma right here, a paperclip. Pause. When you're looking to get serious literature, I would suggest trying to find, and I'm not saying that you can't buy any recently published books, but it's always good to try to build your library on books from like 1940 back. You need a good base, like whatever you're studying, you need to have something that comes from 1940s and back, whether it's psychology, language, religion, mythology, metaphysics, occultism, whatever it is. Try to find you some things from like 1940 back, and preferably in the 19th century, because you're going to get people who are just straight up, they're writing it, they putting it down. You know why? Because they didn't expect certain people for it to fall into their hands. That's why. These things were written for people of a certain status, you know? So although they draped a lot of the language, still they would try to conceal certain things. They still would give up a whole lot. So let me give you an example. Of course, get stuff Rudolf Steiner. You want Rudolph, but that's not related to. I'm getting off. Let me give you one you really want to get. This copyright is 1940 original. This is Occult Anatomy of the Bible. Corinne Helene. Heavy. I showed you the Webster's American Dictionary, 1828. You want to get this Strong's Concordance. The new Strong's Exhaustive Concordance of the Bible. And I just want to read a snippet out of here. Just a snippet here. It says, let me find, doggone it. Basically, I ain't gonna try to find this. Basically, what it says in here is that this was not altered from its original. Oh, here it is. The dictionaries to the Hebrew and Greek texts have been presented as originally published. No section from the original Strong's has been eliminated. New materials have been added and existing materials have been updated and improved. That's why you want to get this. Okay? Other one said, yeah, we went in and doctorate. We think Strong's had a few bad years. Yeah, we just went in and pulled out about 100 pages. You savages don't need to know about this. This is just for us. So, yeah, that's basically. So, this is another one. Anacalypsis by Sir Godfrey Higgins. The Publishing date 1836. Now, this is where we prove our case. That, because for a long time, I used to read that scripture in Genesis and say, man, it's really just simple. It's all just it all traces back to one thing. You know? I'm like, why do they make stuff so complicated? And you start second guessing yourself, well, maybe I'm just slow. You know? I always try to look to simplify stuff. Like, well, maybe I ain't with it. But then I stumbled across this. This is what he says. He's got chapter 2 is called Etymology and Its Use. Ain't that something? I'm not gonna. Let me see. Where can I go? But after I'm just gonna pick up right here. It just says, it would be probably consist of arbitrary sounds not formed in any way from one another or from one sound. Hold on. Let me get down to the get down. Okay, he says, if these philosophers had taken to prove that all languages might be resolved in one, consisting of a certain number of monosyllables or roots, they would have undertaken to prove that I am persuaded is perfectly true, and that they would, I doubt not, have succeeded in their undertaking. But I think neither of their theory. He's talking about two other linguists he studied, but I want to get right down the way to the crux of what he. It will probably be also objected by those who wish not to discover, but to throw discredit upon this work, that I often make etymological deductions in one word from two languages. This would have been more plausible if I had not first proved most unquestionably, as I believe, the intimate connection. Indeed, I feel I am quite justified in saying the absolute identity of the Western and Oriental languages in a very remote period. And this observation will apply to all the languages in which the 16-letter system has obtained. It is impossible to doubt that one original language was extended over all the old world, which is the reason that we find Hebrew and Hindu words in Britain, and words of the most remote countries and climates intermixed in a manner in no other way to be accounted 16:4. All the 16-letter languages are but dialects of an original language. But my practice of explaining words from what are at this day two languages will be objected to by enemies of inquiry, because this is prophetic words. These are prophetic words. Now, I'm going to read this again one more time. But my practice of explaining words from what are at this day two languages will be objected to by enemies of inquiry. This was published in 1836. This is published in 1998. Just to recap. In his attempt to relate the unused root meaning, let me see, hold on. Though popularized in many other dated reference books like Devine's Expository Dictionary of New Testament Words, this practice has been largely abandoned by modern scholars who often label it the root fallacy. Earlier it said, following the majority of 19th century scholarship, which is the era that Godfrey Higgins is writing in the 19th century. And he said there's going to be people going to try to come along and going to try to denounce this science. Now, let me read on and see what he going to really say something here in a second. Okay? It says, will be objected to by my enemies of inquiry because it has a tendency to discover hidden truths. But if there have been one language upon which several have been founded or built, what is so natural as that the roots of a compound word should be found in several of them? Suppose two colonies immigrated, the one to Europe and the other to Africa, from Chaldea, and that each carried a certain word. This word might change by being compounded with other words in both cases, so as to become in each case a new word. It is not evident that the roots of the word may reasonably be sought in either or both the new languages. Okay, uh, he talks about he's quoting a man named Sir William Jones. Quote, I beg leave as a philologer to enter my protest against conjectural etymology in historical researches, and principally against the licentiousness of etymologists. That's like saying licentiousness is like lusting, like they're lusting to try to find something. You know, that's what he's trying to say, that they grasping for straws. And principally against the licentiousness of etymologists in transposing and inserting letters, in substituting at pleasure any consonant or another at the same order, and in totally disregarding the vowels. I most heartily join in the protest, though. That's what now Higgins is coming back and saying he agrees with people who just willy nilly just go and change stuff to fit a meaning that they want. Okay. He's well, I'll read it. I most heartily join in the protest, though I think etymology the grand and only telescope by means of which we can discover the objects of far, distant, and remote antiquity. I read that. I felt so vindicated when I read that. I felt like I've been saying this and saying this and saying this. And sometimes if you're kind of like kind of singular in your voice, and you know you say these things, people kind of like, you know, like, yeah, okay, that's cool. Anyway, go over here and drink this cup of water. You know, just like, are you not? This is profound. Like it is, and then, you know, you come across sources, and it's like, nah, that's just a bunch of poppycock. You know, that's no. You got to take into account of this and blah 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 and blah blah blah. This 10-year study showed it, and then to come back and read that this man in 1836 published something that said that it says, I think etymology the grand and only telescope by means of which we can discover the objects of far distant and remote antiquity. When we find indeed the same words letter for letter, and in a sense precisely the same in different languages, we can scarce hesitate in allowing them a common origin. I'll stop right there. So that was just just to show the importance of studying language. It is it. Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example to make it make sense. Okay, I'm gonna give you an example of how you can take language. Look at this. This picture is in my office. Okay, this is Ganesh. All right. But what I want to focus on is right here. Every Ganesh you see, you're gonna have this, a little mouse. Although that's not a very well drawn mouse. It's like a damn near like a little dog, but it's a mouse. And in every Ganesh statue or picture you see, you're gonna see this little mouse. Okay. Let me see if I can find me another example. Cause I got Ganesh. You're gonna see the little mouse. Okay, let's see if I can find on my statue. Um, mm, I don't see one on here. That could possibly be a little mouse right there. I think it is. Okay. Let me tell you what I'm getting at. Now, this is where I'm going with this. This is where language can come in. Like I tell you, people think that picking up a book is something about just being a bookworm and a nerd, and that's a something that's been sold to us. Well, one minute we'll talk about how we had the Library of Alexandria and Kemet and they did and then you know all that, but then you come. Okay, am I back? All right. What I'm trying to say is that using a book is not it doesn't have to be a left brain just sitting there reading and uselessly gathering information. Your right brain is also supposed to be working all the time when you pick up a book. So let me show you an example of how to do it. Okay, I think it was in this one. See, you need to have these too. I always talk about these. You need to have both of these. Okay, before they're too expensive for you to be able to afford it. Books are going up. But so I looked up mouse in here one day, and mouse comes from it has the same. It comes back to the same root as um, musk and as in muscular. And what's funny is I just I just found something else. I just found something else that quick when I was reading that book, because there's a scripture in Hebrews. A passage in Hebrews chapter 12, and it talks about chastisement. And I think the word chastisement comes back to something like mongoose. Mongoose sounds a whole lot like mongoose. Let me see. Chastisement. Oh, mastigoose. Scourges. Mastigoose. Okay, never mind. Okay. Either way, if that mouse comes back to the same family as the word muscle. Oh, you can't see me? Or is that an old? Can y'all see me? Somebody put one if you can see me. Mic check. Somebody type in one if you can see and hear me normally. That's funny. Very strange. Very strange. Let's try this. Let's try this and see how it works. Uh, huh. Hmm. Okay. I had to turn on my started zooming in. All right, can y'all see me now?
Hmm.